Um, so using import set, you can import data into your system using Excel files or using CSV file or using XLSX file, XML file, or using Oracle database or SQL Server database or MySQL database, any remote database that you have. If you want to import data using that, using import set, you can import data from all these sources of data, right? So right now we are going to see the load data module available into it that is capable of loading data into our system. Now when we try to load this data, I'll actually like to show you a diagram. I'll show this diagram to you from Wiki. This diagram will tell you um, how import set works actually. So I'm going to open this. My Excel is hung. Can you see this diagram? So this is how the import set is set up. You see at the core of it you have import set table. Import is, just like the word means, to import data, to bring data from some source table to some target tables. So we identify what is the source and then we identify what is the target, and then from the source, whatever data we have, we want to get the qualified data from the source table into the target table, right? So on one end, where we are talking about source tables, we have the external data sources. It could be XML file, it could be CSV, it could be Excel, HTTP or FTP data. It could be JDBC connection that in turn can connect to Oracle, MySQL or SQL Server databases. So these are the source tables, and from these source tables, you might want to bring data into ServiceNow target tables. Right? Now the target table could be the location table, group table, incident table, user table, your CMDB, or any other custom table that you might have created into your environment, right? But then, see, there are differences. You cannot directly import this data into these target tables because there could be some transformation activity required as well. Transformation activity as in, see, the format where the type of data or the columns that you have in external data sources might not be exactly the same that as you have into the target tables within ServiceNow, right? So if there are differences, you have to resolve those differences somewhere within this whole process, and that process where we resolve the differences, we transform the data from the external data source so that it matches the format into the target tables. So you do that data transformation here into the transformation block, right? So there is this transformation uh, step here that can contain transformation script as well, which will transform the data that you bring from the external data source and then push it into these target tables, right? Then you will ask, what is this import set table? So this is a staging table basically. So this is your source table, this is your target table. But before processing the data that you are bringing into the target tables, you want to have that data from the external data sources brought into you want to bring it to into some staging table where you keep this data temporarily and then process that data using the transformation script and then push that data into the target tables, right? So there is one activity which is one component known as import set, and to that import set is related an import set table, and to that import set table there is a related transformation map or a script that might be there which will which will map the fields from the external data sources to the target data tables, and then your data is imported and inserted into the target tables. Is the flow clear to you?
Yeah.
Right, so this is the flow. This is the general flow of importing data from external data sources. Now we will see how we can do that. So to do that, I was creating this Excel sheet where I am going to put some server IDs. Let's say I am going to put server ID 1, and then server ID 2, and I'm going to generate some record by autofilling it. Right, let's say that I generated 236 records, and I am going to name my server like susday001 and susday002 or something. So this is my server tags or server names, and I am going to populate these 236 records here, and I'm going to randomly put some owner names here: Rahul, Anand, Kumaran, Michael, Sam, Tim, Sandeep. So randomly some usernames, and date commission, again some random date commissioned. So let's say 01012013, 01012014, 05052013, some random dates, right? And then I'm going to put a date decommissioning here equals sum this plus hopefully it will bring a future date. Yes, no, yes, yes, no, no, yes. Something like this. And I'm going to autofill this. So I just created a, Excel sheet which will act as a data source for me. It contains 236 records for me. The first row that I have here is a header row, which will act as a column into the table that I'm going to create. And I'm going to save it. I'll save it on, let's say I'll save it in D drive within downloads, and I'm going to save it as server list. Right? Now I can close it, and within it I have one sheet right now. Now I have to import this data into my instance. I'll use import set to import this data into my table. For that, let's see if we have a table into ServiceNow. We do not have a target table right now. Identify. I do not want to bring this into the server table. Or let's bring it into the server table. So we have a existing server table in ServiceNow where I will try to bring this data. So we have the cmdb ci underscore server. So let's look into cmdb underscore ci underscore server dot list. So within this server table, you can see that there is server name, then manufacturer, model ID. In fact, it will be good if I put some manufacturer name as well. Let me put something different, which is manufacturer 1. I'll put server name 1 and server ID 1. And I'm doing it purposefully just to make sure that HP IBM some random data. Okay. And OS as well, Linux, Windows, X, Solaris, something like this. And I'm going to fill the list. Alright, so I now have a pretty exhaustive list of items available, some 7-8 columns into it. The server list file is created, and I'm going to import this data into the target table that I have, and the target table is the server table, name is cmdb ci server. This is the one, cmdb underscore ci underscore server dot list. Correct. So this is the servers table, and this is my target table. Right? In my source table, source data or table you may say, is the server list dot xlsx. This is my source table. Correct? Understand it? My source table, my target table. So
Yeah.
from here, I want to import data into the servers table, which is created already into the system. Now see, if I go to tables and columns, and I go to servers table, cmdb ci server, and I go to edit table, now I'm going to utilize this asset column that I have here in the ServiceNow table. I'll put the server ID into the asset table. See, but the thing is, the column name here is server ID 1, and the column name here in the server table is asset, right? So obviously it's not an obvious mapping that will get done automatically. So we will have to map it so that the server ID 1 data goes into the asset column, the server name data goes into the server name column, whatever column is there into the server table. The owner data goes into the column which is within here. It could be a specific column related to the owner. So that data goes into the owner column, right? Date of commissioning goes into the appropriate columns, right? So since the name of the columns is different, we will have to map the columns in a way that the system understand which column data should go into the particular target column into the target table available here, right? That's why transformation is required. So I'll go back to import sets again, and I'm going to do load data. Now when I do load data, so this is the basic interface for loading data. We'll use it to import data from sources that we created already. This is a file import set that we are using. We are importing it using a file. And remember the diagram. We have the external data source as Excel. What we need next is the import set table. So this area we need, and this is the staging table. So when we come to the load data, it will ask you, do you have an import set table created? If you have to choose this from the existing tables available, right? If you do not have, you have to create one, right? So I'm going to put, I'll name it as, I'm into marketing event scope right now. So I'm going to change it to global scope. And I'm going to name it as the import set table as IMP server. So my import set table, I just created set table. My import set table will be U import server. Okay. And then source of the file import. This time we are doing a file import, so I'll keep this radio button selected, the file import, and then I'll choose the file. And I can choose the file from the server list. Let me make sure that I have saved my file here. My file is saved. I'm going to choose this server list and I'm going to open it. Now you have to specify what is the sheet number. I only have one sheet in this worksheet that I have, the workbook that I have. And I want to specify the header row is the first row. right? So the first row that I have is the header row. So accordingly, it will create columns into the import set table that I have, right? So here I identified the table name, and here I am identifying the records that I want to insert into the import set table, right? U import set import server. Now when I submit this table U import server will be created, and this data will be imported into that import set table. Let's do that. I just hit submit, and it is creating table U import set, and it says that 236 records from the file were imported. If you remember, we had 236 records, 237 columns, including the one column which is the header column. So 236 records were created into this import set. You may see it is saying there 236 inserts were done. There is 0 updates, 0 error, 0 empty and ignored. So everything is good on our end. If you want to see this, if you want to see this data, go to import sets. This is the set that was loaded, and you have to go into the import set rows. Here are the rows created already. You are not seeing this. Actually, I should have clicked on the loaded data. This one. When I click on loaded data, it will actually take me to the loaded columns here, and all the fields that I had, I can get rid of. So date commission, date commissioning, follow the sun, manufacturer. I didn't create these columns into my system. It automatically created, right? So I'll take it up. Server ID, server name, date commissioned, date of commissioning, manufacturer, anything else? Owner, OS. Now the data has come here. You may see that the data is now there into the import servers table, which is our import set table. But this is not the actual target table where we want to import the data. This is just a staging table, right? So we'll need this table cleaned up at a later point when we see that our data has been imported successfully into the import set table. Now that we have this if this data imported into the import set table, we have the data here. Now we will have to transform this data so that it matches the columns into the target table, right? So for that, what we have to do is we have to create this transformation map. You can create a transform map right from here on this output screen, or you can go to this create transform map module, create it. Since we are onto this screen, I'm going to choose this create transform map. Now, this transform map is basically a contract between the source and the target, right? So here you identify the contract between this external data source and the target table. So let's define the contract. So I'm going to name this contract as server import transformation map, right? Source table, it automatically selects because I chose that option from the import set output screen. So automatically it has been selected as import server, right? Target table I have to define, so I'm going to choose server table. CMDB underscore CI underscore server. This is the target table, CMDB CI server. So I just chose CMDB CI server. Created is optional, but I'm going to put the created date today, right? Order is 100. Run a script is an option that you may choose. This is advanced level. You know, if you want to use a script to play with the data that is getting imported, then you can use this run script where you have objects like source and target using which you can play with the data using a script, right? But right now I do not want to do any scripting into this import, so I'll leave it blank. I'll not select it. Active should be true by default. It is true. Run business rule is by default true, which means that, you know, if there are business rules written on the server table, right? Do you want to trigger those business rules, right? So by taking this yes, you are actually allowing the business rules to run on this table whenever we are inserting data into this table. So let us leave it blank so that any changes that is related to this server table, any relationship that is there into this server table, any constraint that will be propagated to all of the related tables here. So we'll leave it as run business rule. And I'm not going to enforce any mandatory fields on this transformation map. So I'll leave it and I'm going to save it. Right? When I saved it, hang on, I'll actually go into the transformation maps here and I'll try to find out the transformation map that I just created. So for that I'll have to sort on the basis of created date or updated date, whatever you feel like using. So my transformation map is created right now, but then we have not mapped our columns yet, right? So we'll have to map our columns. I'm opening it. Now see, there is two links available, which is auto map matching fields and mapping assist, right? You can use this auto map matching fields, which will automatically match like fields from the source table and the target tables. If there are similar names, it will start matching it, right? So there is some script written behind it. So if I do auto map matching fields, see what it does. It creates a field map and it finds out similar looking field names and creates a field map for you. It shows that from the source table, which is the import sets table in this case, it filtered out the OS field, and from the target table it filtered out the OS field. But then the rest of the fields were left. So it is always better to do the mapping manually so that you are in control of what fields you want to actually map to what field into the target table. See, on the left side I have the import server table, which is my staging table in this case. Now this table has become the source table for us because this is containing all the data that we imported into it from the Excel file. We don't need the Excel file now. Excel file is gone because all the data that we had in the Excel file is now there into the import server table. So this becomes our source table now, right? Now from the source table, I brought this OS column here, and from the target table, operating system column was brought, and these two are mapped. One-to-one mapping is there, right? Now let's go and find out the server ID column from the import server table, and I'm going to put the asset tag here along with server ID. So server ID is mapped to the asset column. Now let's take server name, and I'm going to put not CPU name, I'm going to take name field from here. Where is that? You can drag and drop as well, and I'm going to map it. Server name is mapped to the name field. Now most of my fields are above here, so I'm going to put date commissioned, and let me see if I have a date field here. I can map it to the start date. So date commission is mapped to start date. Date of decommissioning, I'm not sure which field I should map. So if you want to leave a couple of fields that you do not want to bring into the target table, you can leave that as well. So date commission is done. Let's see if we have a owner field here. Manufacturer, I think we should take manufacturer. So I'm taking manufacturer 1 and I'm going to take manufacturer from here as well. So manufacturer 1 is matched to manufacturer. Let's find out any. So let's assume that I am going to put managed by and I'm mapping to the owner, right? So owner is mapped to managed by. Now OS, we have done mapping. Anything else? All right, let's keep this. Follow the sun. Let me see if we have something related to follow the sun here. I don't have it, so I may leave it right now. All right. So this is the mapping that I want to do between the two tables, the staging table and the target table. I just did the mapping and I'm saving this. Even after this, the data has not propagated to the target table yet, right? We just did the mapping. We can see that the mapping has been done. From the source table, these columns are there, and from the target table, these columns are there. So when we import this data will, the data from these individual columns will go into the mapped columns into the target tables, right? Now, to move this data into the table, I'll do transform. So transform is the activity which will be required to transform the data from this table to the target table. Now to transform, I have this set available. So this is the set. So to each import set that we create, one import set is created, right? Automatically an entry will be created that will contain all those records. So the available import set is this one, right? So I am choosing this default import set right now, which contains all the data related to U import server. So I leave it here. And the selected transformation map to run is server import transform map that we just created and created the mapping for all the columns, right? Now before we go into that, let's go into the server table and find out the number of records so that we can validate after we insert the records into the table. So I'm going to open the server table, cmdb underscore ci underscore server dot list. It contains 66 records as of now. All right. And okay, it looks like sorted. 66 records. Now let's go ahead and transform this. So it started transforming. It's running. So it is processing the data right now, right? And oh, it says there were 200 errors. Looks like it showed 200 errors, but then it shows us transformation completed. So it means that transformation completed means that the data were imported successfully into the table, target table. So if we refresh this table, now we will have 66 plus 236 records, which is 302 records now. Let's go ahead and see the records that we created. Let's go ahead and see the data if we have the correct data or not. So this is the format of the asset name, the table name that we created. Let me personalize the list for a second. So I'm going to have the asset name On the top, name, manufacturer, model ID I don't need right now. Operating system is correct. OS version I don't need. Description I don't need. Class I don't need. What I need is manufacturer is done. Um, owner, owned by or managed by. Managed by was there. And then let's look on these columns. I'm sure all those other columns will also be imported. So here you can see that asset tags, the information is not coming. So maybe the mapping didn't work. We'll see why the mapping didn't work here. Maybe the data type on the server table is different than the data type we chose earlier. So rest of the information you may see here, the name is coming as the name from the Excel sheet, whatever we provided there. Manufacturer Dell, HP, IBM, EMC, HP, Amazon. These were the manufacturer information we put in the Excel sheet, and the operating system that we had into the Excel sheet, and the updated date, and managed by Michael, Anand, Rahul, Tim, Samuel, Kumaran. All this information comes here, right? And this is the server table. This is the CMDB CI underscore server table, right? But for some reason, the asset column is not populated, which actually we mapped there, right, into the transformation map. So we'll have to see why it did not work. So for that, I'll go to tables and columns one more time, and we'll try to find out the type of the asset column that we have here. Server name and the asset. This is a reference type, probably because of this. Because it is a reference type, it is not allowing me to create that record. So I should have chosen a different column name for the asset tag or asset ID, because it is a reference type, and the data will come from the reference table, which is the asset table. That's why the data has not come into this table. Asset. So this data, this looks like a read-only field, and this has to come from a different table. So I should have mapped it to the different column into the transformation map. So if I go to the server import transformation map, and server ID, and instead of choosing asset, maybe I can choose a different field here. I'll have to open this mapping assist one more time. I should have chosen the asset tag instead of using the asset. Alright, so server ID is mapped to asset tag now, and I'm going to save it. And I'm going to update it. Now if we go back to the import sets, and we check the import set detail here, see the import set which was initially loaded is now processed, meaning the work which was supposed to be done by this import set has been done. If we open this, we'll see, so there is some formatting, the date formatting that it was trying to do. There were some error related to date formatting, because the date format that we used into the Excel sheet is different to the system date format that we have here, right? So for that, we have to go into the system properties and change the date format accordingly here, so that the data related to the dates that we have used here goes into the column appropriately. Apparently, the date format that ServiceNow system, my instance, is using is a date time format here, basically in YYYY DD, and then timestamp time format. But the one that I had into the Excel sheet is just the date, right? So we'll have to change that formatting here within the system so that we can adjust the dates values that we are importing from the Excel sheet, right? Now you see that the state has changed from loaded to processed. It was processed. So I'm going back and changing it to loaded one more time. I just want to update it so that I have to reprocess it. So to reprocess, I change it to loaded, and now I can reprocess this one. When I hit transform, this import set will come because this is, this is loaded but not processed yet. The state has been changed to loaded. Now I can go ahead and transform this data. So it's running. So by the time it is running, I'll go to the cmdb ci.server.list. So this time it will again add 236 records into the table, right? The next set of 236 records will be inserted into the table. It is still inserting. It is completed, right? Now if I come back here, I refresh the list. So from 300 odd data, it has changed to 538 data. And the asset values are now getting populated. It is taking as S2, 3, 4, and something unknown. So again, there is some formatting. Unknown is because it is not picking up the right model name, right? So each asset tags that we have is mapped to certain models and the products models that are created already. So these asset tags are not getting mapped to some model name. So this is why it is creating as the unknown record into the asset tag field, right? We could take care of this by putting appropriate model name into the transformation script. In the transformation map, when we saw that script section, we could utilize this run script, and then we could populate, let's say, something like target target dot model number equals, and I could have put some model name, whatever model name is applicable there. I could have put like hardware or some software or computer, right? So this would have ensured that every time every record is getting inserted into the target table, the model number for that target table will be, that record will be set as computer, right? So you could use this advanced level of a script as well into this, which will do additional activities for you so that the data that you insert is inserted into the correct format that you want it to be, right? Now, every time you insert record into the import set and into the target table, there will be import logs created, right? So you can go ahead and look into the import logs and try to find out if there was some error or whether it did insert correctly or not, right? If I go into, I can see that 748 import set records were created into it. The logs were created into it. And the final log that was created is saying 200 records were inserted and there were 200 errors. So it shows that there were errors into this, and the errors that we are seeing here is because of the date formatting that we didn't do, right? So to resolve that, we have to play with the date format. We have to correct the date format so that even if it is a partial error, the error gets resolved into the system. So this is one way of importing data into the ServiceNow tables using a import set, uh, using an import set and an Excel file. Now, since we have imported data into the target table, do we need that import set now? Right? We do not need this import set now, right? So maybe we can go for a table cleanup. We can go ahead and clean that up. So this import set table, if I go into the import set tables module here, I have an option which is cleanup option. Now I can go ahead and I can clean up the U import set server table. I don't want this, so I'm going to delete related transform maps and delete data only. right? But I am going to delete data as well as table structure along with the transformation map, right? So I'm going to clean this up. So it will clean the transformation map, it will clean the data, and it will delete the staging table, which is import set server table for us, right? Now if you go to transform maps, you should not be able to, you will not be able to see that transform map available there because we deleted this. We do not have that, right? If we go to import sets, there is no import set available because we cleaned that up, right? So this cleanup activity you may do a scheduled cleanup as well. You can write a script, and you can, right now this script, if this is activated, this will clean up all the import set tables which were created 7 days ago from today, right? So past 7 day import set will be preserved, and any import set before that 7 days range will be deleted automatically. So you can put your scheduled script to clean up your import set tables, right? And this is just sample data that I have here. Import logs, you can make use of import log module here as well, right? Not just on that page where we saw that import log, you can see it from the import log module here as well. Go through it, whatever has been done into the import log you can see here. Transform errors, if there were errors related to the transformation map or any related error, that will come into this transform errors. Transform history, it will preserve the history here. Whatever transformation you did, the transformation history will be preserved here. You can go through it. Progress, it is showing you what type of import set progress you did. So it is just a history file that you are creating, information you are preserving here. Import sets, no import set left. A scheduled import set. Now the import set that we created, can we schedule it on a daily basis on a defined frequency so that the data from that Excel source gets imported into the table? If it is a delta data, if it is a incremental data, I just want to bring incremental data into the table which gets updated into the Excel sheet or any other data source. Yes, you can do that. You can create a scheduled import set on the import set that you define, right? Either from the file or from the data sources, the different data sources we saw here. So you can create a scheduled one, and that will keep pushing data into the target table on the defined schedule. For that, you have to put a defined scheduled scheme here. You have to define the frequency, daily, weekly, monthly, periodically, after parent runs. Whatever you want to put the frequency, you can put that scheduled import here and then import the data. Right? It will be an automatic exercise. It will automatically import the data. Ideal scenario could be, for example, let's assume that you are using the Excel file from this D drive. There is some automated process which is updating this Excel file every 4 hours. So you will put a script here which will read information from the Excel sheet every 4 hours and then import data into it. So that could be a scenario where you are using it, right? So
Can we see an example tomorrow if you have if you extend this
yes,
topic?
there are a lot of other examples that we need to do, and we'll do that. We'll do that tomorrow. Okay. So that's it for today. We will do that. We just did the Excel import. We'll have to do other imports as well. We'll have to do import from some databases like MySQL or any other database. So we'll do that. We'll create a data source. Right now, we had this Excel data source, but then we have different other data sources available. You may see here, right? So we'll try to use all these data sources and create an scheduled import set as